This week's Torah reading, Nasso, is the longest individual reading in the Torah, 176 psukim. And there are two sections that are juxtaposed, and at first glance the connection is not obvious, but our sages talk about the relationship between these two sections, and as a result of which the relationship between the two of them is now somewhat known. There is firstly the section of the Sota, the wayward woman, very difficult section to understand. A woman accused of infidelity is required to drink a special potion, has God's name in it, and in the event that indeed it is true that she has been guilty of not being faithful to her marriage, body blows up, hard to envision, hard to picture such a thing. And if it's not the case, then she is blessed with children. The next section is the section that discusses the Nazir. The Nazir is the individual who takes upon himself or herself additional strictures beyond what the Torah requires. A Nazir doesn't cut his hair, a Nazir doesn't drink wine, a Nazir doesn't come in contact with things that are ritually impure, therefore does not go into a cemetery, etc. And everyone wants to know what's the relationship between the Sota and the Nazir. Why are these two parshios placed side by side? And our sages teach us very famously that it's not a coincidence, it's not by accident, but rather we are to recognize that Kol hara sota b'kilkulo yazir atzmo min hayayin. Anyone who sees a sota, a wayward woman in her state of degradation, should separate himself from wine. In other words, if something happens in our world, we should be impacted. We shouldn't just say, yeah, interesting, and then go on. We should say, wait a second, maybe if I have been exposed to some event, to some experience, I should change. The Tosefta tells us in Shavuos, the 3rd chapter, that if somebody sees a sin, so it suggests that that person who has seen the sin carried out, there's a reason for it. Perhaps that person himself or herself is guilty of that sin. A person who sees the performance of a mitzvah, there's a merit to seeing such a thing. The person has perhaps excelled in that mitzvah. And this is, I think, a very important concept for us to bear in mind. That whatever happens in life, we should allow ourselves to be moved. We should allow ourselves to have a religious, a spiritual, an emotional response in which we say, you know, I can't live today like I lived yesterday. I need to be a better person. I need to be a different person. We're living at a time where the entire order of the universe is being turned upside down on perhaps a supernatural level. The pandemic of COVID-19 has brought the world to its knees, and there are those who have spent a lot of time and energy blaming those responsible, blaming people for what kind of response, what kind of messaging. We are living through very difficult times in the natural realm. We've just had a terrible storm in our area which has brought down many trees, and even in our own area, 3 people unfortunately lost their lives. And of course, there is tremendous social upheaval in the human realm. things are topsy-turvy. And of course here, where there is so much rage, and there's so much anger, there is a tremendous amount of finger pointing. And of course, it is important that whatever happens in life, in whatever arena of life, yes, we need to understand causes of events. We need to hold those who are guilty responsible, absolutely. But more energy than I see being exerted needs to be put into asking ourselves personally, what can I do? How should I change? If someone sees a sota bekilkula, a woman in a state of degradation, he has to say, you know something? It's about me. There's something wrong with me. I need to change. I need to improve. I need to become a better person. And you know what? That may mean that I have to abstain. I have to become a nazir. And so I think when so much in our world has been strewn about, and we are living in a world of chaos, that's our new normal. We can't just simply say, this is what it is. Stuff happens. Stuff happens. No. We need to ask ourselves, what can I do? How should I react? Rabbi Mordechai Druk, Zichron Livracha, was a Rosh Yeshiva in Yerushalayim, and he reports that on one occasion he was walking with a friend of his, and it was Shabbos, and they were walking to shul, and they passed by somebody who was violating Shabbos, and the friend said to Rabbi Druk, no, the person doesn't know better, doesn't understand what Shabbos is, we certainly shouldn't look at him and cast any aspersions upon him. And they got into shul, and there was somebody who was dominating, and he had his talis over his head, and he was shuckling, and he was really into it. And Rabbi Druk's friend said to him, that guy's a faker. He's going through the motions, he looks frum, but he's not. And Rabbi Druk said he thought to himself, how come this man saw somebody violating Shabbos, and he's willing to give him the benefit of the doubt? But then he walks into shul and he sees somebody davening the way a Jew should daven. How much do we miss davening in shul? And somehow has to knock him down and say he's not for real, that he's a phony. And he thought to himself, and he realized, yes, because for this friend of his who kept Shabbos, he wasn't threatened by the person who wasn't keeping Shabbos. But when he walked into shul and he saw somebody who was davening in a way that was better than his own davening, he couldn't take it. And he had to find some way to say, it's not real, it's not fake. It's fake, it's not genuine. And so, we need to think about this. Yes, we can all cry out, we can all blame, we can all point fingers, we can all tell everyone else how to run the world. And some of it is valuable and justified. There have to be important conversations in all of the areas of life about these issues. But we must spend emotion and energy looking inward and asking ourselves if we have been exposed to so much that is difficult, to so much that is ugly and horrific and heartrending. How can we change? How can we be better? I encourage each and every one of you to think about this question, to discuss it with your families, and hopefully we will continue to be impacted by our world. We will think about the events of time. We will make commitments and decisions to change and be better. And in that merit, we will see a world of peace where people get along, where people respect each other, a world free of natural disasters, a world free of disease, one that is marked by peace and prosperity, and ultimately the Geula Shlema. May we be zocheh to it. Amen.